Habit change is hard. We've all tried to make something part of our lives or cut something out and failed over and over. Even if it's something that helps us, that promises to make our lives better, we just can't seem to stick with it. That's why there are countless books and videos on this topic, why it's something that's studied by psychologists. Habit change is a long and difficult process, one that involves triggers and rewards, dedication, and perhaps most of all, resilience to get back up after we fail. In spite of all this, there's one habit I've been able to stick to for over a decade, a habit I started even before I got into reading about self-development and focusing on bettering myself, and that habit is journaling. I think I started journaling when I was around 12. I still remember what made me start recording my thoughts each day. We were at Walt Disney World and I was in a big pirate phase in my life. Seriously, I was obsessed. I think I wore a fake bandana and jewelry every day that vacation. I remember riding the Pirates of the Caribbean ride and afterward being in the store looking at all of the great merchandise, and I found a journal that had a cool Pirates of the Caribbean picture on it and I picked it out. From that seemingly innocuous purchase was born a lifelong habit. My mom suggested that I use the notebook to journal, to write down my thoughts each day, what happened, and so I started doing that. So I guess I have my mom to thank for this habit as much as I do Pirates of the Caribbean. At first, I recorded every single detail of my life in that journal. What time I woke up, what I did all day, how school went, even what I ate for each meal. But that quickly got to be too much to write, and eventually my journal entries often condensed down to 2 or 3 sentences. I still wrote every single day, but I rarely felt inspired to write more than a couple sentences about what happened. It took a while, but by starting young, I learned eventually how to get the most out of journaling. I moved from just recording what happened each day to being more open and vulnerable about my feelings, to being honest with myself about how I felt. It felt weird at first. I was never very good at sharing my feelings, and so it felt weird to see my feelings there in words staring back at me off the page, especially if those feelings were difficult. But it got easier. I started to realize that all of my feelings were valid and that sharing with my journal was an important way for me to process. The truth is that I don't always know exactly how I'm feeling. Sometimes I feel anxious about something and I'm not quite sure what it is. Sometimes I feel frustrated and I don't know why. And sometimes I feel content, even when nothing special has happened. Journaling has become a tool for sorting out these feelings, for understanding why I feel the way I do so that I can figure out how to feel content and at peace more often. So it shifted from a way to just record memories to a place to sort through my feelings. So after journaling on and off for more than a decade, it's definitely brought me a lot of benefits. And if learning more about your feelings and how to share them, how to be more open and honest with yourself, and how to be more mindful in your daily life is appealing to you, journaling is definitely a habit you should look into. Here's how I think you should approach building this habit. First, you need to figure out what schedule and system works best for you. Experiment with different styles. I've gone from pen and paper to keeping a giant Word document on my computer that I add to all year, and finally back to pen and paper within the last few years. Both digital and physical journaling provide the same effect as long as you're completely focused on what you're writing down. Just pick whichever kind of system feels right to you. You can even try recording audio through the Voice Memos app. There's really no right way to journal as long as you feel comfortable sharing. You also need to pick a schedule that works well for you. A habit that you really engage in once or twice a week is much more effective than one that you push yourself to do daily even when you don't feel like it or even when it's not working for you. I used to make sure to journal every single day, but that wasn't an effective strategy. I was rushing to jot down 1 or 2 sentences instead of really taking the time to dig deep and write out how I was feeling. Now my journaling has become much more sporadic. Some weeks I only journal once or twice, and some I write almost every day. What's really important is that I feel like I have at least 20 minutes to just sit down and really dig deep, to write about how I feel, how I've been feeling the past few days, instead of rushing to get something out. So if I'm too tired at the end of the day or I just don't have time, I don't force myself to sit down and write. That's just not effective. Instead, I just save it for the next day when I feel at peace, when I feel like I have time for it. But it might be more effective for you to review each day as it comes, and that's totally valid. All that matters is that you're finding a schedule of journaling that works best for you. Again, what matters is that you're actually getting your feelings out, not that you're hitting some arbitrary metric that you set for yourself. Second, it's important to be brutally honest as you journal. This is difficult. If there's something you're struggling with, especially if it's something you naturally tend to hide or bury, it can be really difficult to be honest about it. When you bury a feeling, you can act like it's not there or pretend it's not that serious. But once it's written out, it's permanent. The feeling's acknowledged and exposed. It's scary, but necessary. And finally, give yourself grace as you journal. Some days you won't be able to write, some days you won't have time, some days you won't feel like you're able to really hit that feeling that you've been feeling. You'll write around and around the issue but without actually hitting it, and that's all okay. It's all part of the process. Let me give you an example. I was feeling this kind of deep-seated uncertainty in the back of my mind. I had buried it away. I hardly even knew it was there, and I tried to write about it, but I could never quite figure out what it was or why I was feeling it. I tried to write, but it felt like I was going in circles around the actual feeling. But trusting the process and continuing to come back to journaling worked. It finally clicked after I watched Bo Burnham's special Inside. The song about that funny feeling helped me realize exactly what it was. I was feeling this kind of existential uneasiness. This question about what my next job would be, what my next step would be, what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, and how I was going to get there. For most of my life, there had been a learning curve. There was school, there was college, then there was getting a first job, learning how to be an adult in the real world. But then you become an adult and you have to figure out what you're going to do for the rest of it. It was a realization that this is my life for the rest of my life. There are no more graduations or job changes, built-in deadlines, built-in timelines unless I make them. I'm completely in control of the rest of my life, and I have to decide what my next step is going to be. So I finally figured out that that was the source of my feeling, but it took multiple days of writing to finally get there. So if you're just starting out, your journal will probably be messy. It might even be frustrating as you write. Maybe you don't know what to write, or you don't feel like you're really conveying your feelings. It'll be difficult, and at times it'll probably be scary. But trust me, it's worth sticking out. I know, after all, I've been at this for over a decade. I'd love to know your thoughts on journaling, if it's something you tried and gave up at, if it's something you've implemented into your life, because like I said, this is probably the most important habit I've implemented personally, but I know that different methods of processing feelings and just different habits work better for different people. Thanks for watching. I'm Nathan Emery. I'm on a journey to figure out who I am and what my place is in this world. So if you want to follow along on my journey of self-development and self-discovery, be sure to hit that subscribe button.